Well, I think this might be one of the best things I've ever found, and it's on the surface. Look at that. That looks like it could be whole. I've got one small camera on me. I don't have my tripod or anything, or my little tripod, so it's perched rather precariously just there. I don't even have my microphone on, so you may not even hear me. I tell you what I might do. I might keep my telephone on. You may not even hear me, but oh my God. I found a couple of things in this area, including a small brooch fragment, which has got me excited. But I wasn't quite expecting this, and it's a head stud brooch, the most complete one I've ever found, without presumably what may have been a jewel or some sort of precious stone there. It's got its spring, which is slightly missing. It's missing its pin. It's got the end of it. I mean, that is, I think, one of the best brooches I've ever found, and it was literally lying on the surface. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. We're in a very interesting area here. It's always had me slightly excited, even though I've never really been on this field. And now, having found that, I mean, well, I've run out of time, quite frankly. This is the last bit I was doing today. I was on a bit of a recce. I've not even got my sit on. No speaker, no microphone, nothing. Just a small, tiny camera. I will be back tomorrow with all the kit, and we'll see what we can find. But oh my God. Whoa, that's a beauty. Hi there, and welcome to headquarters. We couldn't not have a closer look at this, because it is one of the most beautiful brooches I have ever found. It's a little bit incomplete, i.e. it's missing a bit of its spring there, and it's missing the pin. But the actual design itself and the complexity of the design is as crisp now as if it were made yesterday. I mean, the mind boggles. This must have been turned round by farm machinery for possibly millennia, and yet the condition is just mind-blowing. It's a head stud brooch. They date from the middle of the 1st century to the end of the 2nd century AD, and that, according to Hatter, we'll come to this in a minute, is quite a long lifespan for a Roman brooch, and if anyone knows about that sort of thing, it's him. This is the most brilliant book. It's not the easiest reference book, but once you get the hang of it, it's lovely. I have found another one of these. Now, I had to look into one of my drawers of Roman brooches. This is a head stud brooch as well. The reason they're called head stud brooches is for rather an obvious stud near, just under the wings of the brooch, which would have been enamelled mainly. My most recent one has quite a generous cavity where the head stud would have been, which led me to think that perhaps it would have held a jewel or a stone of sorts. Now, I don't think I'm correct in that, because having read up on Hatter, who firstly says, for the most part they are carefully made dignified brooches using enamelling profusely. Enamelling, and I've seen lots of photographs of these now, all these little holes in these spaces would have had very, very beautiful enamelling in it at one point. And I thought also that maybe that would have held enamelling. But no, according to Hatter, the rivet head is in such a prominent position, was quickly embellished and separated in a decorative unit. Usually they are cast one with the bow, although on one or two rare examples they are made as a separate riveted and riveted on. Now this one's got a hole which goes right through it, and as I said, a generous cavity, and so I think this would have held a riveted head stud. A lot of these brooches also, like the one I've found before, have what's called a circular loop above the wings of the brooch itself. This one either didn't have one, they don't all have them, as I'll show you in some of Hatter's drawings. They don't all have them, whether it's missing or it looks like it may be missing, because there is a groove where it perhaps would have gone. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to all that. I can feel the excitement still in my voice, because it's just the most incredible object, even down to the sort of trumpety foot, which is a sort of circular, gosh, I don't know, I'll put the description in the description. The technical terms for all these parts of the brooch just are too much, quite honestly. So I'm not going to go into all that, but suffice to say, just an amazing object, and God am I lucky. And just looking at it now and looking at that design, I mean, that's craftsmanship. Hattat the other day said that one of my brooches I found was particularly unexciting and boring and peasanty. These ones don't appear to be. These ones appear to have been made for a pretty upmarket group of Romans. So thank you very much for listening to all that, and let's go back to the Veals. Hi there, and welcome back. I couldn't get back on this field fast enough, I've got to say. After yesterday, when I found a couple of things literally just on the surface, well, it hasn't quite been like that, but there are definitely good signs, including a very nice piece of Roman pottery, nothing better than a bit of that, and a couple of quite nice bits of small bronze lumps. We like those as well. Then I found this. Now this is definitely Roman, but I don't know what it is. It's a strip of copper, and it's got very Roman design on it, so it might be a bracelet of sorts. I found a lot of buttons, including this one, which is quite a nice one, and what looks to be a harness ring. And I thought, because it had this little loop on it, I thought it could even be a buckle or a brooch. I don't think it is. I think that's part of a chain, probably to loop it to another harness ring, I'm guessing. And I was just thinking, oh, that's another rather nice button with a sort of deer on it, I think. Or maybe not. I don't know what's going on that. Maybe it's not a button. But anyway, I was just thinking, no coins. That's not a good sign. Pottery, great. Pottery, great. No coins, not so great. Until now. And I'm sort of getting to the part of the field that I feel is going to be more productive. And it's a copper or a brass ass. So it's an early Roman coin. And I said in my last video, if you see emperors facing the wrong way, because they usually face to the right, if they're to the left on the small Constantinian type coins, it's usually a commemorative of sorts. That's not to say that emperors don't face that way. They do, just not very often. This one does. I don't know who he is, but he's facing very firmly that way. Or rather, if you're looking at the coin, he's that way. That's really got my hopes up and given me quite a lot of renewed strength, I've got to say. Hi there, welcome back. Now, firstly, just to say that if you noticed a slight difference in editorial and filming techniques in the last few clips, I've just bought a new camera because the one I had I didn't get on with at all. It came with quite good reviews and I couldn't get the hang of it. So I eventually bit the bullet and put it aside and got a new one, which I'm absolutely thrilled with. But in transferring the memory card from one to the other, it reformatted it itself and I lost a load of clips and bits of film that, well, for good now. So it's not going to happen again. It might happen a little bit more after this, but I've tried to cobble together other clips, other bits and pieces to fill in the gaps. Unfortunately, because I record my audio on a completely separate device, I've got that to work with, but sometimes only one camera angle because the main one I didn't have. So I'm really sorry about that. It's not going to happen again. And it stopped you from seeing me digging up this rather wonderful coin. It's a Dupondius, a half a sestertius. I've got a nice proper chunky one here, just to compare the two. And it probably is, I don't know, in complete weight-wise, it's half a sestertius, but it's a lot smaller and often more delicate. And it's of Claudius, so it's mid-1st century AD, I think sort of circa 50 to 60, 70 or thereabouts. got Claudius on one side and it's got Ceres seated on the other. Now, he's facing left. He's facing the wrong way. And it got me to thinking about emperors facing the wrong way, because it's not that common. It does happen. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that probably most emperors, apart from notable ones like Probus, who never had a left-facing coin apparently, had most denominations with them probably facing that way at some point or another. It's just not usual at all. But it does go back to all denominations from the Republican times onwards. In fact, I do say in my videos sometimes that if you're finding 4th century coins, little 4th century bronzes with the emperor facing that way, it more often than not is probably not the emperor, it's Rome or Constantinople, or the god or goddess of those cities facing that way. They're usually wearing a sort of helmet. It's not to say that it couldn't be an emperor either. Of course, Constantine and his ilk, they probably all had coins facing that way as well, but more often than not, if you have a little bronze of that age, it's probably one of the commemorative coins. Anyway, back to this one. It got me to thinking about why they did have coins facing that way, when probably 90, 95, maybe even more percent of the time they are facing to the right. And it is a little bit unusual, especially if you think that our word sinister comes from the Roman sinistra, I think that's right, which means left-handed or left. And the Romans being, you know, a superstitious bunch, it's a wonder that any of them wanted to face that way, but they did. So I started doing a little bit of research, and it generally considered that no one really knows. It's not common, and so why did they do it? It might just have been fashion. It might have been the engraver deciding that he wanted to do something a bit different. But it is a bit different. And as I said, we don't really know why. It's a bit of a riddle. But fashions do change. And by the Severan dynasty, which is about sort of 170 to 230 AD, it was very uncommon. But after that, it did start coming a little bit more fashionable to be facing that way. As I said, emperors like Probus, apparently you never find a coin of his facing that way. And I think I'm right in saying that the Emperor Caligula, for example, very rarely faced right. I'm not sure, don't quote me, that might be completely wrong. But as I said, I've been doing a little bit of research. There's quite a good website here called Hookmore Ancient Coins. I'll put a link up to him. He says Roman imperial coins generally have busts on the obverse that face right. At various times and for various reasons usually unclear, the bust of the emperors is shown facing left. He goes on to say, one reason for showing the bust facing left is to indicate a consular or martial purpose. Well, I don't know where he gets that one from necessarily, but he certainly knows more about it than I do, so I'm going with it. So I think the main thing that we can take away from it is that they're not that common, but they do happen, and it's really nice to find them. Anyway, me and the hound are going detecting in a minute, and with our new camera. Hopefully we'll be able to get you some footage. We haven't had much luck when we've been out together recently, which is a bit annoying, because usually he's dynamite at getting me a luck. He's a lucky charm. So fingers crossed we find something. And again, forgive me if the footage is all a little bit wonky in certain areas of the video from now on. I don't think it happens very much, and it's not going to happen again because we've got our new camera. Anyway, let's go back to the fields. And would you believe it, as if on cue, half an hour after recording that, here we are, and I've found the most lovely little bronze coin. It's House of Constantine, it's 4th century, and it's an emperor facing the wrong way. Well, facing left. It's not a commemorative either. It's definitely an emperor. Tasky, stay. I think it might be Christmas. I can see IMP or INLCRI. I think that might be Christmas. And there's the altar, or whatever it is, on the back, the reverse. And it's a really lovely one, in really good condition. So they're not all commemoratives, obviously. So, well, I can't really explain that. I found so few left-facing emperors, and that's another really nice one. Right, so now back to the original fields for this video, which are about 400 meters that way, just on the other side of that large wood. really nice. I don't know how early it is, but it's quite crudely made. It's not a spectacle buckle, I don't think, but it's very square and very chamfered. And even though it looks like it might have been cast, and it's still got its very simple pin in it, I think that's got to be very, very early. It doesn't look medieval or Tudor, it just looks too sort of brutish for that. Gosh, that's lovely, I'm thrilled with that. And I've also found this, I don't know what it is, but again, it looks very early. In fact, no, it doesn't at all. It's a shoe buckle, I can see now. I thought it was a part of a fibula or some sort of Roman tool for removing sort of bogies or earwax or something. But no, it's not at all. I can see where the hole would have been for the buckle pin, the central pin. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I'm more than happy with that other buckle. That's brilliant. Well, it's becoming quite a confusing field, this. I found a sort of clothes hook, which to me looks quite modern. It might not even be a clothes hook. I'm not sure. I'm not very good on these. But I have found a couple of very dodgy looking ones and been told that they're Saxon, even though I don't think that's Saxon, sadly. But any idea on that, that'd be helpful. And then this, that I think looks like a shoe buckle, even though you'd be forgiven for thinking it was something much older than a Georgian shoe buckle. From that side, it's lovely. Maybe it is something a bit different. It's quite sort of crudely sort of made, but that makes me think buckle. That bit there, and a sort of small coin or two, and then this, which is a little hammered coin. Which is absolutely fantastic and in really quite nice condition. Looks completely unclipped. It's probably an Edward of sorts, long cross, but quite a lot of nice detail on it. That's really wonderful. But my mindset was, it's going to be Roman here and just Roman, and from yesterday, and it's not. It might not even be a settlement. I really thought this is a proper Roman thing. It's going to be lying all over the place. It's not at all. But that's lovely. I'm really pleased with that. It's a funny field. I've even found a really nice sea urchin. And I recognised it from that side, but my eye really gets into those. I'm tuned, and I've been finding these since I was about 7 years old in these fields. What a beauty. Look at the colours on that. Gosh. Well, that's just a brilliant sign. I mean, big, nice bits of bronze cast sprue waste or whatever they call it, but it's a lovely, great big chunk of it. A nugget, like a sort of gold, sort of, I don't know, sort of molten bit of sort of whatever it is, but that's just such a good sign. I just wish there was more artifacts with it. It's been a bloody brilliant day so far. I mean, we found all sorts of things, including that. That's almost made me the happiest, because that's such a good sign of activity, bronze lumps like that. And to top it off so far, an Edwardian penny, Edward VII. Don't find many of these, but it's a brilliant date range. The more astute of you would have noticed that there haven't been any beeps so far. I haven't got my speaker on today. It's a bit of a relief sometimes, because there's so many wires and stuff in order for me to bring you the sound from the DJI Lite, which obviously doesn't have a remote control or sound from the actual box itself. But I'll beep some beeps in, or perhaps not. Yeah, sorry about that. Cool, look at that wonderful sky behind me, but it could come and dump it down with rain at any time, and it's coming this way. It's very clear sounding. It sounds like a cartridge without any gunky ferrous in it, if that makes any sense. I've got this field wrong, I think, completely. I can't complain. It's been a fabulous day. Found all sorts of things, but I just had such high hopes that it was going to be very Roman. It's a big field. I may have got the wrong bit, so I'll have to go on another bit next time. But I thought this would be the main section, and it's not. Or either that, or it's not Roman. Beep, 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 beep. Right, sounding even more cartridgey now. And what would you know? It's a cartridge without much ferrous in it. Here you go, proof. I told you. Anyway, look, thank you very much for watching. I really enjoyed that. It's lovely to be here. Nice, beautiful field. Lovely weather, nice and warm. Hasn't rained on me. And see you next time.